When Sarah met Marine Corporal James, their connection sparked instantly, but soon after, James was deployed overseas. Determined to keep their bond alive across the miles and months, Sarah never stopped writing letters, heartfelt messages filled with hope, love, and unwavering support. Little did she know, those letters would not only keep James going, but would also touch the hearts of 12 strangers in uniform. On the day of her wedding, Sarah's quiet dedication to a deployed Marine brought an unexpected, emotional surprise that would forever change her life. Absolutely. Sarah first met James on a warm spring afternoon at a small cafe in her hometown, the kind of place where the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the chatter of strangers and the occasional soft jazz drifting from the speakers overhead. It was a moment that felt almost ordinary, yet for Sarah, it quickly became something extraordinary. James was easy to talk to, his smile was genuine, his laugh contagious. They found themselves sharing stories over iced teas, discovering common interests, and feeling a connection that neither expected to find in such a fleeting encounter. But just as their friendship began to bloom, reality stepped in with its harsh reminder. James was a Marine, soon to be deployed overseas. The knowledge hung heavily between them, casting a shadow over the budding relationship. Sarah watched as the date of his deployment approached, each day shrinking their time together until it would disappear entirely. It wasn't just the distance she feared, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead, danger, separation, and the weight of waiting. In those final days before James left, Sarah found herself desperate to hold on to something tangible, something to bridge the vast miles that would soon separate them. She thought back to stories she'd heard about soldiers receiving letters from home, letters that carried not just words, but hope, comfort, and a reminder that they were not forgotten. It was a small gesture, but one with immense power. So, one quiet evening, Sarah sat down at her desk with a simple sheet of paper and a pen. Her hands trembled slightly as she began to write. The words came slowly at first, awkward and raw, then gained strength with every sentence. She poured her heart into that letter, sharing her fears, her hopes, and the simple day-to-day things she wanted James to know. She told him how much she admired his courage, how much she would miss him, and how she believed in his safe return. That first letter was more than just ink on paper. It was a lifeline thrown across the ocean, a tangible piece of Sarah's spirit sent to accompany James in a place so far from home. She mailed it the next morning with a mixture of nervous anticipation and quiet resolve. Writing that letter gave her a way to stay connected, to fight the loneliness that threatened to creep in during the long months ahead. To Sarah's surprise and relief, James responded. His letter was filled with gratitude and warmth, describing how her words brightened his days and lifted his spirits. That exchange sparked a rhythm, a steady flow of letters back and forth, each one building a bridge of love and strength that neither distance nor time could break. Through the weeks and months, writing became Sarah's anchor. When the nights were long and her thoughts spiraled into worry, she found comfort in putting pen to paper. She imagined James reading her letters beneath foreign skies, knowing that somewhere, someone cared enough to share her heart in every word. And James, in turn, carried her letters with him, tucking them into his gear, reading them in quiet moments to feel closer to the life and love waiting for him at home. That first letter, born out of uncertainty and hope, grew into a powerful symbol of their connection. It was more than just communication. It was a promise, a way to hold on when everything else felt fragile. Sarah never stopped writing because she understood that sometimes the simplest gestures carry the greatest strength. And little did she know, those letters would ripple beyond just the two of them, touching lives in ways she could never have imagined. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks stretched into months, Sarah's commitment to writing letters to James became an essential part of her daily routine. Every morning, she carved out time to sit at her small desk by the window, the soft morning light spilling across her notebook and envelopes. She never knew exactly what to write, but she knew that each letter had to carry something real, something that would make James feel seen, supported, and loved, despite the thousands of miles and countless obstacles between them. The letters were never just about words. They were windows into Sarah's world. She described the simple things, the way the sunlight hit the trees in her backyard, how the neighborhood kids played in the street, or the new recipe she had tried that weekend. She shared her triumphs and her struggles, her quiet moments of joy and her deep wells of loneliness. Through every letter, she tried to capture the heartbeat of her life back home, painting a picture that James could carry with him into the uncertainty of his deployment. Writing those letters was not always easy. Some days, Sarah felt overwhelmed by the weight of waiting and worry. She would stare at the blank page, her pen frozen as fear threatened to choke her words. She thought about the dangers James faced daily, the heat of the desert sun, the constant vigilance, the unknown missions. She thought about the nights when she imagined him alone in a distant place, far from everything familiar. But she refused to let those fears silence her voice. Instead, she wrote about hope, about strength, about the promise that no matter what happened, someone was thinking of him, rooting for him, and waiting patiently for his safe return. James, on his side of the world, held those letters like treasures. In the midst of long patrols, restless nights, and moments of intense uncertainty, Sarah's words gave him a glimpse of home and a reminder of the life he was fighting to protect. He would find quiet moments to read her letters, sometimes more than once, letting her words wash over him like a balm. The letters reminded him that he was not alone, that someone out there cared enough to take the time to write, to share, to love across the distance. But it wasn't just the letters themselves that mattered. Over time, Sarah and James developed a rhythm, and a rhythm became their lifeline. She'd send her letters whenever she could, hoping they would reach him despite the chaos of war and the unreliable mail system. And when James found time to reply, his letters were a mixture of honesty and optimism. He told her about his days, the camaraderie among his unit, and the challenges they faced. He shared his own hopes for the future, the moments of beauty amid the hardship, and the ways Sarah's letters gave him strength when things felt impossible. Through these exchanges, their bond deepened beyond the surface of words. It became a source of emotional sustenance for both of them, a quiet, steady reassurance that their connection transcended the physical separation. Sarah began to realize that the act of writing itself was a form of courage, an expression of faith that love and kindness could persist even in the darkest times. As the months passed, Sarah also noticed that the letters began to affect more than just the two of them. She learned from James that he would often read her letters aloud to his fellow Marines, sharing the hope and warmth they contained. The other soldiers found comfort in her words, a reminder that someone back home cared deeply for the men risking their lives. Sarah never imagined that her simple letters would reach beyond James, but they became a symbol of support and solidarity for an entire unit facing the uncertainty of deployment together. The ritual of letter writing grounded Sarah during those uncertain months. It was her way of taking control when everything else felt out of reach. When friends and family asked how she was managing, she would say that writing to James gave her purpose and a sense of connection. It helped her face the long days and restless nights, reminding her that even though James was far away, they were still part of each other's lives. Sometimes, when a letter was delayed or didn't arrive for weeks, Sarah's heart would ache with the silence. But she never gave up. Each envelope she sent was wrapped with hope, sealed with love, and carried a piece of her soul across oceans and continents. Writing was how she kept the promise she made on that first day, to be there for James, no matter what. And so, the letters continued, one after another, threading their way through the months of deployment, carrying with them a story of resilience, devotion, and an unbreakable bond. Sarah never stopped writing because she believed that every word mattered, that every letter was a lifeline, and that love, even at a distance, was powerful enough to endure anything. As time went on, Sarah's letters took on a significance far beyond the private connection she shared with James. What began as a personal lifeline grew into something much larger, a thread that wove through the lives of many men who shared James's deployment experience. James often read Sarah's letters aloud to his fellow Marines during the rare moments of rest and quiet, and her words became a beacon of hope not just for him, but for the entire unit. In the harsh environment of deployment, where danger was an everyday reality and the line between normalcy and chaos blurred constantly, the Marines found themselves craving something familiar, something that reminded them of home and the people who were waiting for them. Sarah's letters became that reminder. They were more than just words on paper. They were a source of comfort and encouragement that pierced through the monotony and fear. James would gather his closest comrades during their downtime. The small group huddled around him as he carefully unfolded the pages she had sent. His voice carried the tone of someone telling a story both tender and strong. He read the details she shared about small-town festivals, the changing seasons, or the little victories in her life. Her letters spoke of love and faith, resilience and hope, and they offered a momentary escape from the harsh realities surrounding them. The other Marines began to look forward to James's readings. They found strength in Sarah's words, in her unwavering support, and in the knowledge that someone far away was thinking of them with kindness and care. Her letters reminded them that their sacrifices were not in vain, that their lives mattered to people beyond the military ranks, and that there was a world waiting for them beyond the battlefield. Sarah never expected her letters to touch so many lives. For her, writing had always been a private act of love, a way to maintain a connection with James. But hearing from James about how her words lifted the spirits of an entire unit filled her with a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. It made her realize that her simple gesture carried power beyond what she had imagined. She was, in a small way, contributing to the emotional survival of these men far from home. James and his fellow Marines began to pass her letters around, sharing the messages of hope and support. Sometimes they would discuss the stories she told, laughing over the light-hearted moments she described or reflecting quietly on the more serious ones. Her words became a symbol of solidarity, a reminder that they were not forgotten, and that even in the darkest hours there was light. This communal sharing of letters created a bond among the Marines themselves, strengthening their camaraderie and boosting morale. They knew that they were part of something bigger, not just a military unit, but a community connected through acts of kindness and faith. Sarah's letters, though written from thousands of miles away, became a thread that tied these men together in a unique and profound way. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to write with renewed purpose, knowing that her words carried meaning beyond what she could see. Each letter was crafted with care, a message not only to James but also to the brothers-in-arms who read alongside him. She included words of encouragement, stories meant to inspire, and reminders that they were brave and valued. She imagined these men reading her letters late at night, finding a moment of peace amid the uncertainty. The experience transformed Sarah. She became more aware of the sacrifices made by not just James, but by every service member who risked everything far from home. Her writing became a mission, a way to give back in the only way she knew how, through words that could touch hearts and remind others that they were seen, appreciated, and loved. Through this unexpected connection, Sarah formed a unique relationship, not just with James, but with his unit. Their stories and struggles became part of her own life, and she found strength in the knowledge that her letters helped create a sense of home for these men in a place so far removed from everything familiar. In a world where distance and danger threatened to break bonds, Sarah's letters stood as proof that connection could survive. They showed how a single act of kindness, taking the time to write a letter, to share a piece of oneself, could ripple outward, touching many lives and building bridges across the divide of war. As James's deployment continued, the importance of those letters only grew. They were a source of light in dark times, a tangible expression of care that no battlefield could erase. Sarah never stopped writing because she understood that her words were more than messages. They were lifelines that united hearts across continents, reminding everyone involved that love and hope were stronger than any hardship. The day of Sarah's wedding arrived with a mixture of excitement and nerves swirling in the air. She had spent months planning every detail, the dress, the flowers, the music, and yet, beneath all the preparations, there was a quiet anticipation that something unexpected might happen. Sarah had always felt that her connection to James and his unit was special, but she had no idea just how deeply it would touch the fabric of her own life. As guests began to arrive at the small chapel, the atmosphere buzzed with celebration. Friends and family gathered in clusters, exchanging smiles and warm greetings, while the sunlight streamed softly through the stained glass windows. Sarah felt a flutter of emotions, joy, gratitude, and a hint of nervousness as she waited for the moment to walk down the aisle. Suddenly, the peaceful hum of the ceremony was broken by a surprising sight. 12 men, all dressed in crisp Marine uniforms, entered quietly through the chapel doors. Their presence was unexpected and striking, each one carrying the weight of discipline and duty, yet their faces softened by a shared purpose that transcended formality. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she recognized James's closest comrades, the very Marines who had shared his deployment and had read her letters alongside him. They had come, unannounced and uninvited, bearing a silent message of solidarity and support. It was as if the distance and danger of deployment had been momentarily erased by their physical presence, transforming the wedding into something much more profound. The Marines took their places with quiet dignity, their eyes fixed on Sarah with a mix of respect and warmth. Some offered subtle nods, others smiled gently, but all communicated a powerful unspoken message. They were there because of the bond forged through shared hardship and the letters Sarah had written. They came to honor the love that had been kept alive across oceans and war zones. As Sarah looked around the chapel, she saw the astonishment and curiosity on the faces of the other guests. No one had expected this kind of surprise, and yet it felt perfectly fitting. These 12 strangers in uniform, so different from the usual wedding crowd, had become part of her story, part of the fabric of her life in a way she had never imagined. The Marines didn't speak much during the ceremony, letting their presence speak volumes instead. Their arrival was a living testament to the power of connection, sacrifice, and loyalty. Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes, not just from the surprise, but from the overwhelming realization that the letters she had sent had created something far greater than she could have dreamed. In the moments that followed, as the ceremony continued, the Marines stood as a silent honor guard, witnessing the union that had been sustained by hope and faith during the long months of separation. They were a reminder of the sacrifices made not just by those who serve, but also by those who wait, who love from afar, and hold on against the odds. After the vows were exchanged and the rings slipped onto fingers, the reception unfolded with a new kind of energy. The Marines mingled with the guests, sharing stories and laughter, bridging the gap between the military world and civilian life. They recounted moments from deployment, spoke fondly of James and Sarah, and expressed their gratitude for the letters that had meant so much to them all. Sarah found herself surrounded by these men, once strangers, now brothers in arms connected through love and endurance. She listened as they spoke of the quiet comfort her words had brought during difficult days, and how those letters had lifted spirits and reminded them of home. Their presence was a profound gift, one that made the wedding more than a celebration of marriage. It became a celebration of community, resilience, and the unbreakable bonds formed in the most unlikely circumstances. The day ended with tears, laughter, and heartfelt embraces. The 12 Marines who had walked into Sarah's wedding without warning had left an indelible mark on everyone there. They had turned a personal moment into a collective one, a shared testament to the strength of love and the extraordinary ways it can manifest. Sarah knew that this surprise was a reflection of everything she had come to understand about connection and sacrifice. Her letters had built a bridge between worlds, the civilian and the military, the home front and the battlefield. And on this day, surrounded by those who had carried James through his deployment, she realized that love had indeed found a way to bring them all together. The wedding reception blossomed into a celebration that went far beyond what Sarah and James had originally imagined. What was meant to be a personal gathering of family and friends became a vibrant testament to love, service, and the extraordinary bonds forged through hardship and hope. The 12 Marines who had unexpectedly walked into the ceremony were now fully part of the day's unfolding story, their presence bringing an energy that was both humbling and uplifting. As guests mingled, the room hummed with conversation that flowed easily between laughter and solemn reflection. The Marines shared stories of deployment, stories that were raw and real, filled with moments of danger, but also deep friendship. They spoke of the challenges they faced together, the exhaustion, the fear, and the moments when hope seemed fragile. And through it all, they credited Sarah's letters with something truly remarkable, the power to keep their spirits alive. Sarah listened with awe as these men, once strangers, now spoke openly about how her words had become a source of comfort and strength. They recounted how, during long nights in foreign lands, they would pass her letters among themselves, drawing strength from the kindness of a woman they had never met, but who had cared so deeply. Her letters were like threads of home woven through their days, reminding them that they were not alone, that their sacrifices mattered to someone back home. The reception became a gathering, not just of celebration, but of gratitude. Gratitude from the Marines for the connection Sarah had provided, and gratitude from Sarah and James for the unwavering support of those who had stood beside him in the toughest of times. It was a moment where the lines between military and civilian life blurred, where the shared humanity of everyone in that room took center stage. Throughout the evening, Sarah found herself drawn into conversations that revealed the depth of what it meant to serve and to wait. She heard first-hand accounts of camaraderie, resilience, and the profound impact that small gestures, like a letter, could have on someone's heart and mind. These stories deepened her understanding of the sacrifices made, not just on the battlefield, but also on the home front, by those who carry the weight of worry and hope every day. James, standing proudly beside Sarah, was visibly moved. The presence of his fellow Marines at their wedding was more than a surprise. It was a profound acknowledgement of the journey they had shared, the hardships they had endured, and the unbreakable bonds that had been formed. It was a moment of healing and connection, a merging of worlds that had been separated by war and distance. As the night wore on, speeches and toasts echoed through the room, each one weaving together themes of love, sacrifice, and unity. Friends and family raised their glasses to honor not only the newlyweds, but also the strength of those who serve and the power of those who wait. It was a collective acknowledgement that love is a force that transcends distance, fear, and uncertainty. The 12 Marines became honorary guests of the celebration, their presence a living symbol of the courage and camaraderie that define military service. They mingled freely, sharing laughter and tears, connecting with Sarah's loved ones in a way that felt both natural and profound. The wedding, once a personal milestone, had blossomed into a communal celebration of resilience and hope. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah and James found a quiet moment together. They reflected on the journey that had brought them to this day, the challenges of deployment, the countless letters exchanged, and the extraordinary surprise of having James's comrades stand beside them in this celebration. It was a reminder that love, when nurtured with patience and faith, could endure even the most difficult trials. Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the love she and James shared, but for the extended family they had gained through those months apart. The 12 Marines who had walked into their wedding were a testament to the strength found in connection, the power of kindness, and the unyielding spirit of those who serve. In that moment, surrounded by friends, family, and newfound brothers in arms, Sarah understood that their wedding was more than a ceremony. It was a celebration of all the invisible threads that bind people together, threads of sacrifice, hope, and unwavering love. And it was a promise that no matter where life's journey led them, those bonds would remain unbroken.